You are a battle-hardened Marine, a veteran who has sacrificed everything, including your eyesight, in the war. Now, you live a quiet life with your beloved daughter, cherishing each moment together. However, one fateful night, your world is shattered when 3 ruthless criminals break into your home, intent on taking away the one thing you hold dear. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Don't Breathe 2. Let's dive into the story. In the heart of Detroit, chaos erupts as a house goes up in flames, and amidst the panic in the street, a little girl with strikingly peculiar hair walks alone, tears streaming down her face, lost and frightened in a world that feels increasingly unsafe. Phoenix, a little girl with a striking strand of white hair, once lived in the house that caught fire with her mother and father, both of whom were trapped in the grip of addiction, producing a dangerous array of illegal substances. While her childhood was marred by chaos and uncertainty, 8 years have passed, and now Phoenix is all grown up. At just 11 years old, she is learning to navigate perilous situations with resilience and courage. 8 years earlier, Norman Nordstrom discovered her on the smoke-filled streets, tears streaming down her face, and he has since become a guardian figure, guiding her through the challenges of a world fraught with danger. Norman Nordstrom adopted Phoenix, caring for her all these years and teaching her how to defend herself in a world that can be unforgiving. Although she sees him as a father figure, Phoenix remains unaware that Norman is not her biological dad, and her memories of her own parents are faint. Overprotective, Norman's fear stems from losing his own daughter in a tragic car accident not long ago, which makes him hesitant to let Phoenix explore the outside world. As he reviews her assignments, Hernandez, Norman's only link to society, arrives, bringing with him the outside influences and dangers that Norman wishes to shield Phoenix from. After some convincing, Hernandez manages to persuade Norman to allow Phoenix to venture into the city, though it takes a bit of a struggle to break through Norman's protective instincts. As they drive, Phoenix cheerfully sings a little ditty she learned from her mother, which brings a wistful smile to Hernandez's face. Feeling a sense of responsibility, he decides to take her to the house where she lived 8 years ago, the place that holds the painful memory of her mother's death. Once they arrive in town, Phoenix can't resist the allure of a nearby park and stops to play. She longs to join a group of children, but uncertainty holds her back as she wonders if she will be accepted into their carefree world. As evening falls, Phoenix realizes she needs to get home, but first heads to the bathroom. While washing her hands, she notices a man lurking behind her, speaking to her in a way that sends chills down her spine. He doesn't want to let her go, but just in time, a loyal dog rushes in to help, allowing Phoenix to escape and jump into the car. However, the man, along with his driver, starts following them down the street. When Phoenix finally arrives home, she finds Norman hard at work, chopping wood. Later that evening, as Hernandez prepares to leave, she finds her path blocked by a car. Behind the wheel is the same man who had spoken to Phoenix in the bathroom railing, a name that now carries an ominous weight. Hernandez stepped out of the car, determined to ask Raylan to move his vehicle, but as he noticed her military background and the gun at her side, he assured her that he would comply shortly. Just as she was about to pass him, another man suddenly emerged, grabbing Hernandez from behind and viciously strangling her before delivering brutal blows with a hammer. Meanwhile, in a more serene setting, Norman entered Phoenix's room with her homework for the next month. As he handed it to her, the little girl opened up about her loneliness, expressing a heartfelt desire to attend school with other children, longing for companionship in her isolated world. Norman's fear of losing another daughter kept him from letting Phoenix out of his sight, but outside, their loyal dog sensed something unusual and went to investigate. Inside, Phoenix was absorbed in a shelter sheet featuring children from the small town, her loneliness palpable as she longed for friendship and adventure. Curious and eager to explore, she dreamt of the outside world while Norman filled the dog's bowl, only to realize it remained untouched. When he returned to the house, he was shocked to find 2 men from Raylan's group had entered, their intentions unknown and menacing, heightening the tension of the evening. Not seeing the dog anywhere, Norman stepped outside to search for him, unaware that the strange men were actually looking for Phoenix. Inside the house, Phoenix heard footsteps and initially assumed it was Norman, but when she realized it was a stranger, panic set in, and she quickly hid under the bed. The intruder entered the room and lifted the bed, but Phoenix, trained well by Norman, had already slipped into the closet. With her heart racing, she activated a small alarm and tossed it to distract the man, then stealthily left the room. Just as she did, another man began ascending the stairs, forcing her to quickly switch off the light and find a hiding spot, her instincts kicking in as she fought to stay silent and unseen. Holding her breath, Phoenix gripped the edge of the closet and silently fell to the floor like a ninja. Just as she prepared to dart outside, a third man approached the door, forcing her to stay hidden. Meanwhile, Norman was desperately searching for his dog, and, following the animal's keen scent, he tragically discovered the dog's lifeless body. In the wound, he found a bullet and instantly realized the gravity of the situation. Back in the house, Phoenix was about to escape through the back door when a bullet whizzed past her head, and a member of the criminal gang blocked her path, his back turned. In a surge of instinctive protection, Norman's hands emerged from behind the door, gripping the thug's neck and beginning to strangle him with fierce determination. In a desperate bid for safety, Phoenix dashed to the basement and hid inside a container, locking herself in to evade the stranger pursuing her. Meanwhile, Norman was engaged in a grim task, literally gluing his wounds together to stem the flow of blood. Unbeknownst to him, a gang member had spotted the blood seeping from the garage and approached cautiously to investigate. As he stepped inside, he noted the bloodstains and the glue smeared on the ground. His curiosity piqued. But just as he rounded the car, Norman sprang from the shadows, ready to confront the intruder head-on. Jim Bob, a member of the gang, was alerted by his friend's frantic screams echoing from the garage and hurried to investigate. To his horror, he found his comrade sprawled on the ground, his mouth and nose sealed shut with glue, struggling to breathe. In a fit of desperation, Jim Bob punched a hole in the man's cheek, then grabbed a shard of glass to pry open his mouth. Meanwhile, in the shadows of the basement, Norman listened intently as the sound of water flowing through the pipes reached his ears. It was the ominous trickle of water filling the container where Phoenix was hiding, raising the stakes in their perilous situation. Norman's instincts kicked in as he traced the source of the flowing water to the basement, where Duke was filling the container with Phoenix inside. Confronted by Duke, who threatened to electrocute the girl by inserting a live cable into the water, Norman emerged from the shadows, knife in hand. As Duke attempted to snatch the knife, his movement created a faint noise that alerted Norman to his position. In an intense struggle, the two men grappled fiercely, with Norman nearly gaining the upper hand to strangle Duke. However, in a sudden twist, Duke broke free, seizing the knife for himself, escalating the deadly confrontation. As the water level in the container rose perilously high, Norman frantically searched for a way to save Phoenix and finally found the cable, yanking it free just as Duke advanced toward him with the knife glinting menacingly in his hand. In the tense standoff, a canister began to expand ominously in the basement, heightening the stakes. Hiding behind a table, Norman seized the moment and threw the cord onto the ground, triggering a powerful explosion that obliterated Duke. Despite his injuries and exhaustion, Norman's determination surged as he rushed to the now overflowing container, managing to push it aside just in time to save Phoenix, who had lost consciousness from the struggle. Meanwhile, Raylan arrived at the scene, discovering Duke's lifeless body sprawled in the basement. As Norman and Phoenix emerged into the covered garden, they were swiftly surrounded by the gang, who overpowered Norman and seized the little girl. Gripping her hand, Raylan revealed a shocking connection, a patch of white hair that mirrored Phoenix's, unveiling his identity as her long-lost father. After 8 long years, he had finally come to reclaim her. However, before departing, Raylan issued a chilling order to kill Norman, but in a stroke of luck, Norman managed to escape, leaving the confrontation hanging in the balance. As one of the gang members attempted to drag Phoenix away, she seized a pitchfork and struck his foot, causing him to stumble in pain. Enraged, he began to pursue her, but Norman intervened, delivering a devastating blow that left the man's face a bloody mess. The commotion attracted the attention of the others, who rushed into the covered garden, only to discover Jared's lifeless body sprawled on the ground. Meanwhile, Norman and Phoenix had dashed inside the house in search of a gun. Just as they were about to enter the attic, Phoenix began to pepper Norman with questions about their situation, but their conversation was abruptly interrupted by the growling of Raylan's dog, signaling danger was still close at hand. Phoenix sought refuge in a room while Norman made his way to the attic, unaware that the dog had followed him. As she attempted to flee through a window, Norman found himself torn when he aimed his gun at the dog, but couldn't bring himself to pull the trigger. Outside, however, Raul, one of the gang members, captured Phoenix and threw her into a car, while Raylan, indifferent to the chaos he was causing, set Norman's house ablaze, leaving the dog trapped inside. Miraculously, Norman managed to escape the flames, rescuing the dog in the process. The following day, Phoenix awoke in an unfamiliar house where Raylan began to reveal the shocking truth about her past and the connections they shared. Raylan revealed to Phoenix that his name was actually Tara, a shocking truth that left her wanting to escape, and surprisingly, he showed no intention of stopping her. As she made her way out, she encountered several people in the dimly lit hallway, instantly recognizing it as a drug house. Just as she was about to push open the door, a woman in a wheelchair approached her from behind. Phoenix ignored her at first, but when the woman began to sing the familiar ditty, a wave of recognition washed over the little girl. The woman introduced herself as her mother, and an overwhelming sense of joy filled the air as she beamed at the sight of her daughter. After embracing her mother, Phoenix was shown a collection of pictures and showered with stories about her past. However, the joyous moment quickly turned grim when the woman began coughing violently and spitting up blood. Concerned, Phoenix asked if she was sick, to which her mother revealed the harsh truth. The substances she had been cooking in the basement of their previous home had left her gravely ill. She explained that the toxic gases from the drugs were slowly killing her from the inside, and with a heavy heart, she confessed that she was going to die because of her addiction. Tears welled up in the woman's eyes as she desperately told Phoenix that she needed a healthy heart, revealing her disturbing intention to take her daughter's heart to fuel her drug production. As the chilling realization washed over Phoenix, she spotted a pill dissolving in the juice she had been drinking and noticed two beds prepared for a horrific operation. Soon, the pill took effect, and Phoenix succumbed to its effects, drifting into a deep sleep. Meanwhile, Norman, slowly recovering from his ordeal, found that Raylan's dog had ceased its attacks, leaving him with a momentary reprieve amid the chaos. As Norman made his way along the road, he stumbled upon Hernandez's car, discovering his lifeless body slumped inside. Armed with a machete, he followed the dog, which led him toward Raylan's house where a sinister operation was about to unfold. Meanwhile, Phoenix regained consciousness, realizing the grim reality she faced. Despite the odds stacked against her, the two addicts were determined to proceed with the horrific surgery. Lacking proper tools, the surgeon prepared to remove Phoenix's heart while she was still alive, a chilling prospect that left Raul visibly uneasy. Just as the procedure was set to begin, the lights flickered and plunged the room into darkness, prompting Raylan to order Jim Bob to investigate the cause of the outage. Just as Jim was about to restore the power, Norman struck him from behind, knocking him to the ground. In a desperate struggle, Jim swung a hammer at Norman, but Norman managed to stop his hand, forcing a bell into Jim's throat. As Jim staggered towards a gun, Norman anticipated his move and delivered a fatal headshot. The chilling sound of Jim's screams echoed through the house, drawing Raylan and the others to the scene. As chaos ensued, Raylan barked orders for everyone to hunt down Norman, puzzled by how Norman had managed to track him down. It was then that Raylan's dog entered the room, and everything suddenly became clear. When the gang descended into the basement, they were met with a gruesome sight. Jim's lifeless body sprawled on the ground and Norman appearing to be dead beside him. However, as the criminals waded through the water, Norman sensed their presence and in a flash took down 3 of them with lethal precision. Only Raul remained, and despite the chaos, he couldn't bring himself to kill the little girl, ultimately choosing to let Norman go free. In the midst of the commotion, as the girl was being dragged away, Norman seized the moment and struck back, plunging a knife into the chest of the surgeon who had caused so much suffering. As gas canisters filled the room, the tension escalated. Norman fought fiercely with Raylan, who, in a panic, began firing wildly, tragically hitting his own wife in the chaos. Meanwhile, the wheelchair-carrying Phoenix teetered dangerously close to an empty pool, and she struggled against the handcuffs that bound her to her mother, desperately using her feet to support their weight. In a bid for freedom, Phoenix grasped a machete and attempted to cut her mother's hand, but her efforts failed, and they both tumbled to the ground. Just as Raylan seemed poised to regain control, Norman seized him, brutally gouging out his eyes and leaving him to suffer, ensuring he wouldn't pose a threat any longer. Badly injured, Norman turns to Phoenix and confirms that her father had spoken the truth, confessing to his heinous crimes, including murder and rape, urging her to flee to safety. Just then, Raylan appears and plunges a knife into Norman, but in a surge of courage, Phoenix retaliates and stabs Raylan to death. With the threat eliminated, the little girl makes her escape, heading towards a children's home she had spotted earlier. There, she approaches a group of children playing and introduces herself proudly as Phoenix. In a haunting moment during the credits, a brief scene reveals Raylan's dog approaching Norman's seemingly lifeless body, hinting at the unresolved chaos left in the aftermath. Is it possible that Norman is still alive? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video. Thank you for watching.